Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to a exciting episode of College Hoops Coast to Coast. Looking forward to it after we finally have some games to talk about. So, yeah, we'll get right to it. Good morning, Kev.
Morning. It's exciting to have some games to discuss, as you said, and we've got some exciting people to discuss them with later on the show.
Yeah, so we'll go over the show lineup today. We'll talk. We'll start breaking down the regions of the country, so we can go coast to coast. We'll try to cover every conference in college basketball, at least for a few minutes. Excuse me, and then we will have at the end of the show, the next half of the show, we will have three guests that have some really big wins from the week. So we'll talk to them for about 5 to 10 minutes apiece. Looking forward to that. And then we'll close with some look ahead for this upcoming week. So getting straight to it, we'll talk in general. We'll have our warm-up, our intro layup lines first. So what were some of your overall thoughts just from it felt like NCAA tournament in a sense of how much basketball was on and how hard it was to keep up with everything going on. A ton of great games, some awesome unexpected victories. And so Kevin, what did you think, man?
Yeah, it was exciting. I thought that first and foremost, the number of upsets we saw was always a lot of fun. We're trying to highlight mid majors on the show, and to have San Francisco beat Virginia, for Richmond to beat Kentucky, I think first of all, those aren't as big an upsets as people tend to realize. I mean, those are really good teams, really good coaches, and experience, and those are tough games to play. But I think it's always fun to see those types of clubs get rewarded. So that was certainly a lot of fun for me. Just fun to watch the energy. I thought that in particular, I was watching benches all weekend. I'm sure this is something you do as a coach, is like watch the energy on those benches, particularly in a lot of empty gyms. And it was a lot of fun to see how guys were just kind of coming together and building chemistry as we go. So that was for me one of the main takeaways, was just seeing how happy everyone was to be with their teams, and how happy everyone was to be together and compete, and really good start to the college basketball season.
Yeah, awesome just to have so many stories to talk about, and just to be able to have college basketball again. And obviously we're in some unprecedented times and some awkward times, and some teams are putting themselves out there. But we appreciate it, because it's definitely great to have college basketball back. I just love so many great stories, so much great energy, like you said, on the benches, from the fan support, from the social media aspect, even the announcers. You could tell those guys are glad to be back doing what they do. And I think all of us are. College basketball has a special place for all of us, and brings people together. It brings a different kind of morale boost for, just for us that love college hoops. So it was great to have it back. Anything else that stood out to you before we kind of dive coast to coast, conference to conference?
Now let's do the thing.
Yeah, let's do it. So we'll go straight to Power 5 first. We'll cover the Big 12, Big 10, SEC, ACC, and Pac-12. So let's talk about your favorite conference, since you're in Big 10 country as a Northwestern student. Let's talk about the Big 10.
Yeah, I mean, no major upsets. Nobody picked off. I thought for one, Michigan State, I watched a fair amount of their game against Notre Dame on Saturday night. They looked really good. Still kind of mad at the Spartans for reading my cast in football on Saturday, but on the court, they looked excellent. I thought that Sam Hauser, the transfer from Marquette, gave him a really good look as a four-man. He could create a little bit. Rocket Watts is really coming along. I think this is going to be a really tough team that's really deep. They played 9 guys, 15 minutes or more in that game. So I think that's really exciting for Michigan State. Illinois struggled a little bit.
Real quick on Michigan State, they have a really awesome comeback story from a guy who's been hurt. Will you mention that real quick, Kev?
Yeah, Josh Langford. I was actually watching the game with my mom, and she was like, "Why did they show 2017 stats?" I was like, "Well, that was the last time he played in full." He played, I think, 13. He played 13 games in the 2018-19 season. Left with an injury in late December. Missed the rest of that season. Missed all of last season. And a lot of people thought maybe his career was over. Maybe he'd leave Michigan State, but he's back, and he's playing really good basketball for them early on. So that's a great story, and I'm excited for him.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Illinois. You wanted to talk about, they had a high-scoring game where they made a ton of threes. They look good. Rutgers looked really good as well. We can kind of go down the line, Big Ten, real quick before we move to the next league.
Yeah, Illinois dominated two games, and then really struggled against Ohio. Give credit to Ohio; they have a great team, great point guard in Jason Preston. But good sign for Illinois is that Adam Miller, the true freshman guard from Morgan Park, was balling out. He averaged 18 points on the weekend. That's a really good sign for them. Iowa, I was excited to see Patrick McCaffrey and Keegan Murray give them a different look at the 4 spot. Two athletic guys who can switch defensively. We talked in the opening show about the defensive concerns with the Hawkeyes. And so to have two guys who are as long and athletic as they are in that Iowa press, I think is a really good sign. Rutgers didn't miss a beat. I was concerned that maybe they would have some early struggles. Wisconsin handled business. Michigan struggled with Oakland after Oakland really struggled to start the year, but I think they'll be fine. And so, and then shout out Purdue, which beat a very good Liberty team in the opener. Lost their second game to Clemson, but they were so banged up. Jaden Ivey was out there, stud true freshman at point guard. Eric Hunter, their starting point guard to enter the year, was injured as well. So they were really thin in the backcourt, and their freshman Zach Edey up front is another 7'3" guy that Matt Painter has found to go dominating on the block. He was the 429th ranked recruit in 24/7, averaging 18 and 7 in his first 2 college games against 2 top 100 caliber teams. So Zach Edey, a name to watch early on.
Yeah. Anyone else in the Big Ten before we kind of move to the next conference?
Now let's pivot.
Sweet. Pivot. We're going to forward pivot. We're going to go to the Big 12. Forward pivot to the Big 12. Baylor was in action, the top team ranked in that conference. Texas Tech had some big games. Kansas had a big game with Gonzaga. Talk a little bit about, the Big 12.
Yeah, first of all, West Virginia probably had the best weekend of anyone in that they swept out at the Crossover Classic and beat a very good Western Kentucky team, beat a very good VCU team, beat another good South Dakota State team. Those aren't brand names, but those are tough wins that they got on a neutral court. Was really impressed with them. Texas Tech against Houston, we were both locked into that game, and I thought that Texas Tech has some work to do to find who they are offensively. There was a little bit of one-on-5 basketball being played. I thought they came together a little bit better. Once they started getting stops later in the game, they were able to find a rhythm. Baylor could not watch either of their games because they were locked in on Flow Hoops, but they were impressive statistically against Washington to dominate a Pac-12 opponent. And their transfer guard, Adam Flagler, has put up 2 really impressive performances. He's a guy that I was watching all season long. He should be a big one. And then Kansas hangs around against a really good Gonzaga team, then puts away St. Joe's late. We'll see. I think they still need to find some answers at point guard, and they need David McCormick to play better than he did up front. But the talent level is still high, and Marcus Garrett is still one of the best in college basketball. So we'll see what comes up there. But the next team to get the big test is Texas. They go to Maui this week. We'll go to Asheville, which is the new Maui for the week, and they'll get tested 3 times against some very good opponents, starting with Davidson today.
Yeah, going kind of what you talked about. West Virginia, awesome weekend. They look good, especially when they're making shots. Shout out to Taz Sherman, a former Collin County Cougar that is a great shooter. Texas kid, Houston kid that I had the pleasure to recruit. Great young man. I think he'll be a big X factor for them this season when he can make shots. Going to Texas Tech, I think they have a deep team, a lot of new guys, a lot of young guys still. If you remember back, the team that had Jared Cover and the 2 grad transfers that were really good for them that year, it took them a while to get going, and they run a motion offense. It takes a while to kind of get in the flow and get in the feel. Playing an experienced Houston team that's really tough defensively and definitely a competitive game. That Houston dominated most of it. When Texas Tech finally got going, it became really competitive, but that team is going to continue to get better and better as the year goes on. So I'm not surprised one bit. Anything that you see as far as how good they can be as they continue to improve and get going, as Coach Beard and the staff continues to coach them. They progress as well as any team in the country, in my opinion, as far as the year goes on because of how much they teach. And then, Baylor's was really impressive in a game that they played last year, very similarly to Washington early in the year. Was a big game, and they really dominated out the gate. Shout out to Coach Jerome Tang for getting that opportunity. Unfortunate that Coach Drew, it looks like he's going to be back, but unfortunately, he had to miss the game because of COVID. We'll have a lot of head coaches that are missing because of COVID, but excited for Coach Tang to have that opportunity and do such a great job with it. One of the top assistant coaches in the country at any level will be a great head coach. We'll pivot to the SEC. We know LSU took a loss that was probably a little surprising for some. Kentucky took a loss that was surprising. Talk a little bit about the SEC.
Yeah, probably the worst start for any high major league, just from the perspective of two of your top 5 teams losing to non-Power 5 foes. And look, St. Louis is really, really good. Richmond's really, really good. Both of those teams are potential top 25 teams down the line.
Yep.
But you are yourself a top 25 caliber team if you're LSU, you're Kentucky, and those are games you want to win. So that's not a great start. Combine that with Tennessee's COVID problem that's going to cause them to miss a couple good games that they had scheduled for this coming week. Florida had a COVID problem that caused them to miss an opportunity against Virginia. So some missed opportunities early in the schedule for the SEC. I give John Calipari credit for playing that game against Richmond. We're going to talk about the game later, but Coach Cal could have gotten out of that game if he didn't want to play it. And I think he knew he was going to get tested by a very, very good Richmond team, and he wanted to give his guys that challenge. I think the challenge by playing a team that runs, a tough style of offense with the Princeton looks that Richmond runs, a team that's so experienced, I think that was a better test for Kentucky than what a lot of high majors would have done to the Wildcats. So I give him credit for playing that game. And then I'll shout out, down the line a little bit, Arkansas. I thought, they played Mississippi Valley State and won by 80, which is, again, a lower level of competition, but then they took on North Texas, who we talked about in our preview podcast as one of the better teams, I think, in mid-major basketball. And they really controlled this game from the opening tip. It's going to take I think, some time to figure out what rotations and what lineups work the best, but they're getting some really good play from Justin Smith, the grad transfer from Indiana. JD Note, who sat out last year, can really score the ball. Moses Moody can certainly score, the top 40 freshman. And then the 7-footer Connor Vanover was a revelation in that game. 6 points, but he had 16 rebounds and 6 blocks, and that will change the game for an Arkansas defense that's already really good at defending the 3.
Yeah, we had Texas A&M entered the gates their first game yesterday. They got a win. Georgia also getting a win early on. And we got a big game tonight, Stanford and, if I'm not mistaken, we got
Alabama.
Stanford and Alabama tonight, so that should be a good one. So, yeah, SEC hoops. Looking forward to kind of seeing how that league evolves. There's a lot of new faces in the league, not as many returners as far as strong as the league was last year. So looking forward to seeing how that league kind of progresses as it goes in time. LSU did have a really talented scorer, freshman, come in that looks like he'll be able to put up some major buckets this year and be a major contributor and a big player in the SEC.
Cam Thomas is a bucket. I watched some Oak Hill tape over the summer to get a feel for him. I mean, the dude is shoot first, shoot second, shoot third. But when you have the bag that he has, I don't blame you. Like, I would be out there chucking all day too. And he put up, I think, 25 each in his first 2 games. 25 in the St. Louis game, 27 in the SIU Edwardsville game. Was efficient to score both of those. So it's not like he was just chucking. So he's going to be a name to watch, particularly with the talent they have around him with Chandler Watford and Darius Days, Javonte Smart.
Absolutely. They play tonight against Southeastern Louisiana, so I'm sure he'll be in more buckets and more bags tonight. Let's pivot to the Pac-12, go West Coast a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the Pac-12, Arizona State got the big early test at Mohegan Sun against Rhode Island and then Villanova. I was not necessarily underwhelmed, but I think they have a lot of room to grow as a team. I think Marcus Bagley and Josh Christopher both really lived up to the hype, the 2 top 50 freshmen that had coming in. I thought both guys were ready to play. They came with toughness. They played with an edge. They played within the team concept. That was really exciting. I think I've talked about this on other shows. I think Arizona State's problem this year is going to be finding who's going to be the guy who is willing to give up shots to make the team better. Remy Martin's a scoring point guard. Alonzo Verge is a high volume shooter. You bring in Christopher, who's a high volume guy, and it just felt like at times they were playing, a little bit too much ISO basketball, and you see that, borne out with the assist numbers in their first 2 games. In the Villanova game, they had 8 assists on 26 made baskets. In the Rhode Island game, they had. I believe, they had 9 assists on 27 made baskets. that's not going to be enough. And I think maybe they bring Verge off the bench and play Holland Woods, who's more of a glue guy, a point guard, and let him distribute. But I think they just got to figure that out a little bit. But still a certainly very talented Arizona State team. Other ones to watch, UCLA came out of the gate slow. They lose to San Diego State, a very good San Diego State team, and went to triple overtime against Pepperdine. Colorado got a nice win against a Kansas State team that's in rebuild mode. Washington loses the Baylor game. Hard to blame them, but they didn't look good doing it. Otherwise, mostly just bye-game wins throughout the rest of the league.
Yeah, you mentioned Arizona State. They probably were the team that had the best success. They definitely have the talent to be able to win the league and make a little bit of a run. Like you said, with the young, talented guys they have around Remy Martin, just kind of figuring out how to make it all work to play at a high level. UCLA definitely had the most tests early on. Pepperdine really took them to the wire, had many chances to win that game. And we know UCLA will hopefully get themselves going too. And they have a talented squad, and coach always does a great job leading the pack there. So that's kind of sums up. We're almost done. We got ACC left for Power 5. The biggest news of the ACC is that Virginia took the loss to Todd Golden and the San Francisco Dons.
Yeah, that game was a lot of fun. I think it was a tough matchup for Virginia because, first of all, Todd Golden and San Francisco are great big game coaches, and that they do a great job every year with Gonzaga, building a game plan to have them ready to compete. But I thought that UVA just didn't hit a ton of shots. San Francisco hit a lot of shots, and if you look at it, like in that ball game, San Francisco was 10 for 30 on 2-point shots, which is pack line special. San Francisco, just they just hit a ton of threes, right? And sometimes when you hit a ton of threes, when you play a space as they do with 4 and 5 out all the time, they do a great job with some of the slip action that they ran to make it difficult for the Virginia bigs in space. But they hit the shots, and Virginia didn't. I like the Reese Beekman, the freshman for Virginia. He played really well. The waiver for Trey Murphy's going to help them long term. I'm not really selling much Virginia stock. Duke struggled with Coppin State. Not really worried about it. Jalen Johnson put up a huge game. He's going to have a huge year. How about Virginia Tech? Big shout out to Virginia Tech. Beating Villanova. I thought the big kid Keve Aluma coming in from Wofford, he's way more advanced offensively than I expected. Made 6 threes in his first 3 games, which is really exciting. He can block shots. He can move on the perimeter. He's an exciting player. And then Clemson as well had some big performances, beating Mississippi State and Purdue at the Space Coast Classic, or the Space Coast Challenge, I think it is. Amir Sims was awesome for them. Shout out to Jonathan Bayer, who was injured the last 2 years, comes back, has a really good game against Purdue. There were a team that their bench popped to me. Like they were locked in, they were bringing energy. They were playing like a high school sized gym, and those guys were awesome. So big shout out to Clemson, and really good start for that club.
Yeah, Clemson and Virginia Tech probably the main teams that did a great job in opening weekend. Not that others didn't. Louisville also 3-0.
Yep.
Weren't tested maybe at the same level that those teams were, but definitely those teams really stood out in the ACC. Florida State has yet to play yet, one of the top teams in the conference as well. And then kind of going back, Pac-12, a couple teams probably need to give a little bit of shout out to. Oregon State did start out the year. They're starting out 2-0. You always love that. Buffalo's 2-0, and also Washington State Cougars 2-0. So want to give those teams some quick love. Let's pivot. Let's go straight to the Northeast region and go straight to the American East Conference. I think UMass Lowell may be the talk of the town in the conference this week. Let's talk about that conference.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a weird week for the league because Vermont hasn't started, Stony Brook hasn't started, Albany hasn't started. Those 3 teams are always so central to what that league is. But I was really impressed with UMass Lowell. First off, to beat a San Francisco team that is very good, probably a top 100 caliber team. But then they also went on the road and played back-to-back games against Illinois State and Ohio State. Were competitive in both of them. Led late against Ohio State, was really in it. Pat Duquette doing a really nice job, and they have a stud, a guy to watch, and Obadiah Noel. He's averaging 24, 7, and 4 to start the season. So he was a guy we expected to be really good. He was my preseason player of the year in the conference, and he has certainly lived up to that building so far. So UMass Lowell, probably my team to watch for the week in the America East.
Yes. Let's go straight to the Big East. Had some games. Villanova, you talked about playing against Virginia Tech. They took a loss and probably a surprising game that people weren't expecting, although Virginia Tech is really good. Talk a little bit about the Big East and some of the things you saw there.
Yeah, I think Villanova will be fine. They don't feel like the top. Watching them, they didn't look like a top 5 team to me. That everyone had them, and I'm including myself. It just feels like it was hard for them to get easy baskets. It felt very similar to the team 2 years ago they had with Phil Booth and Eric Paschal coming off of the national championship. Like when you watch that Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo team, Omari Spellman as well, everything was easy. They were moving the ball. They were getting it from side to side. They were just so hard to guard. And, they got so many easy looks out of it. And then the next year was just a grind to score points with Paschal and Booth. Those were 2 elite players and they had good players around them. They were still a top 20-ish team. They just weren't, at that elite tier. And so far, Villanova has looked more like that team than the national title teams, partially because they don't have a great shot creator. Caleb Daniels is good, but not great in that regard. Justin Morris, physical, but he's not at that level of a Brunson or DiVincenzo yet. Jermaine Samuels really hasn't made the jump. Robinson Earl was terrific. He's going to have an awesome year. But, to me, Villanova looks a little bit closer to the pack in the rest of the Big East than I expected that they would early on. I think Providence did a nice job, in their opener. They were dominant against Fairfield. They're going to be an interesting team to watch this week at Maui. They have Indiana today to get that kicked off. Seton Hall, hopefully Bryce Aiken can get healthy, sprain an ankle in the opener. They really need his shot creation at the point guard spot because they're really thin in the backcourt in terms of guys who can go get a bucket. But they hung in tight against a good Louisville team just by coming off of a quarantine earlier in this month. So, shout out to Seton Hall for hanging in. UConn, I think, will be fine, but they struggled a little bit through a couple of bye games. Xavier was dominant in their first 2 bye games, first bye game, and then struggled through Bradley and Toledo. 2 good mid-majors, but those were tough games. They had a couple guys out due to contact tracing, which was a challenge. But I think I was impressed with the league overall. Maybe don't have the top end talent that you might have thought with a Villanova team that it maybe isn't a national title contender like I expected, but still plenty of time. I don't want to write the book too early on a Jay Wright team.
Right. Early for all teams, right? I mean, we can see the talent, but you never know how things will come together. Go back all the way, speaking of the same league, with the UConn teams that we saw come out of there with Kemba Walker or even with Kevin Ollie leading the way. Those teams weren't necessarily teams that were projected to go as they did. So never know with this COVID season, the unpredictability of how teams will evolve, but always a high-level league in the Big East, and definitely some teams that came out and helped themselves this weekend. Let's talk CAA. We'll switch to the next league.
Yeah, I mean, College of Charleston, first off the bat, played 30 really good minutes on the road against North Carolina.
Yep.
That's not an easy place to play, even with no fans. And they were replacing a lot. They were replacing an NBA guy in Grant Riller who got drafted. So was impressed to see that they were able to hang in the way that they did. Similarly, Hofstra was in the game most of the way against Rutgers. Rutgers kind of kept him at arm's length, but was generally pretty impressed by how they competed, especially another team that was losing a lot of guys and trying to figure out who they are early on in the season. Otherwise, I mean, kind of a slow start for a lot of teams. Some of them haven't gotten off the boards yet. Delaware was in a quarantine. Northeastern shut down. James Madison played 3 to open the year, lost a tough one to Norfolk State, but then won last night against Radford, which is always a good program. They're a team with a new coach and Mark Byington, who I think is going to do a really good job. It's just going to take him a little bit of time. And they brought in some transfers to help him out. Vado Morse from Mount St. Mary's had 26 yesterday. So that's a good start for him at a new spot.
Yeah, we'll switch. Go ahead and go to the next league, the MAAC MAC. We'll go to the East Coast MAC. Not a lot of games played in this league. Iona, Manhattan, Marist, Monmouth, Niagara, Ryder, Siena, and Canisius all didn't play. And then you have games, one game from Quinnipiac, St. Peter's. Obviously, we can talk about them. And then Fairfield, 0-1. So only 4 games played within the whole league. But St. Peter's probably a team that's worth mentioning because they actually got a win.
Yeah, the MAC kind of got slammed with COVID-related shutdowns in the mid-November parts, and that caused them to lose the first couple games on their schedule for most clubs. St. Peter's was really impressive. First off, to beat a 10 team like LaSalle on a neutral court is a really good sign for them, sign of the job that Shaheen Holloway is doing. But they led St. John's really late in that ball game, and just couldn't get a stop in the closing seconds. They had the ball. I think they were up 2, and they threw the ball long on an inbounds play, got taken away. St. John's then hit a 3 and won the game, something along those lines. I was watching it. It kind of blended together, but I was very impressed with how Casey Nadefo looked. He's one of the best defenders in the country, at 3 blocks and 3 steals in that opener. They're developing guys, young guys like Fusini Drame and Matthew Lee and Daryl Banks, who played a lot of basketball last season. I think they're going to continue to need a little bit of help in the backcourt. Young guys like Marty Silvera and Noah Kamba, if they can get something out of them, this is going to be a very interesting St. Peter's team that can compete with Siena at the top of the MAC. And certainly excited to watch. Hopefully the Saints get back in action this past weekend or this coming weekend. Excuse me. They're still looking for games. So I'm sure if your coach looking for a game, give Coach Carm a call. I think he'd be interested in any and all opportunities. And that's kind of the game right now. I know Iona has Seton Hall tonight, which should be a good test to open up the Rick Pitino era.
Yeah, looking forward to that game tonight, but to open up the Pitino era. I know he's kind of been vocal about what his thoughts are on how this COVID thing should be handled. So
hopefully he doesn't do the Jim Boeheim and then come out at halftime when they're getting smoked and say, "Hey, what the heck? We shouldn't be playing right now. We're not ready to go."
Jim Boeheim has some interesting thoughts. We can talk about that possibly later in the show, but he definitely had some interesting thoughts. You did mention St. John's. I think they're also undefeated. So
yes, sir.
Shout out to those guys for their start. We'll move to the last conference in this region, in the NEC conference.
Yeah, just pulling it up here. I thought that Fairleigh Dickinson struggled early on, 2 losses, 1 to Rutgers, which is very understandable. But they got handled by Quinnipiac. I think it's just going to take them time. They have a couple guys who opted out. Xavier Key, who was their one of their better wing scorers, opted out, and then Devin Dunn as well. So they have a great point guard and Julia Jenkins, but a lot of unproven guys around them, and those opt-outs certainly didn't help. Got to shout out Bryant. They didn't get a win, but they were incredibly competitive against Syracuse for 40 minutes. I was alluding to it, but they led at halftime by, I think, double figures, and they had 2 shots to win it late. Jared Grasso is recruiting at just a higher level than the rest of this league right now, and you're seeing it. Chris Childs hit 5 threes in his first game coming in from Indian Hills. Peter Kiss is going to score for them. Michael Green, the point guard, is a stat sheet stuffer. So it was a lot of fun to see Bryant continue to make strides. And they've had a couple bye games that they've really pushed teams in. I think they pushed Iowa a couple years ago. They pushed Rutgers last year. So Bryant is definitely looking good early on. Yeah,
Boeheim didn't like too much of how fast they were moving and how much in better shape. Maybe he may mention something. He mentioned some things that would definitely made you think like, okay, Boeheim. But they came out with the win. So credit to Bryant for giving them a great fight. I thought they played well enough to win. They just couldn't quite pull it off. But Boeheim definitely had a lot to say.
Here's the deal with the Boeheim thing. You're Jim Boeheim. You're at Syracuse. You run the dang show. So I get that you came out of quarantine on Wednesday. That's fine. If you didn't want to play this game on Friday, you did not have to play. You could have found a way. No one forced you to play that game. You said you wanted to play. So then when your team came out flat, your team came out and thought they could overwhelm a team like Bryant, and you couldn't do that. You don't get to complain at halftime. Come on now. Like, what are we doing? I was so mad at that. I was like irrationally angry at Jim Boeheim for that one.
Yeah, I think the win for the weekend would have to go to St. Francis. They beat Pitt 80-70, which was a huge win. Anytime you can beat a team again at that level and basically a guaranteed bye game. Not a game you're supposed to win. I know Pitt was not happy to lose that game, but credit to St. Francis for coming out in the red flash, flashing red and finding a way to win that game by 10,
Yeah, they lost two guys in Isaiah Blackman and Keith Braxton, who were program-changing recruits who spent 4 years there and were awesome and brought that program to another level. And I think a lot of people picked them low in the league because they were graduating so much. And so to come out and beat an ACC team in their opener says a lot about the program that Rob Kern was building out there.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick 30-second timeout. We do have on Twitter, you can be able to follow us on Kevin's feed or on All Access _SM, along with my own feed at Coach Burton 13. And then we also have the YouTube channel. Please subscribe at All Access Network. We'll be back in 30 seconds, and we'll shift to the Midwest. Okay, so we're going to shift to the Midwest region. We'll go straight to the Horizon League. I know a little bit about that league. Didn't follow a ton. I think there weren't as many games as maybe I expected because a lot of kind of the same things you talked about. But let's talk a little bit about the Horizon League.
Yeah, I think the big story, Luke Yaklich at UIC gets 2 wins to open it up. First of all, they were down, I think, 22 points against Northern Illinois in their opener. They never quit, came back and won that game, which is a huge confidence boost. Yeah, they won the final 10 minutes of that game by 20 points. They finished 31-11 in the final 10 minutes, which was quite impressive. And then took Central Michigan to the wire and won that game. So a really nice start. Raquandis Mitchell, the JUCO kid that I know Brandon Goebels shouted out a couple times, but he balled out, had 23 points in that win over CMU. So I think that's a program to watch. I picked them high in the league for a reason, and shout out to UIC, one of the few teams that was in action and played multiple games this week.
Yeah, they look good. They look good, Coach. I think everybody felt like Coach Luke was going to do a great job when he got his opportunity, wherever that was. He chose UIC, and they chose him, and off to a great start. He's brought in some new guys that look good, and Raquan Mitchell, again, shout out to Brandon Goebel. I know he's a JUCO product from if I'm not mistaken, from Pratt Junior College. We recruited him a little bit. I got to know the young man a little bit, and he's definitely a competitor, talented kid, and made a great decision on where he went to school. We'll shift to the MAC, MAC, not 2 A's, just one, and talk about that league in the Midwest.
Yeah, they had a bunch of bye games to play, and so that's always tough. I know Toledo had to go play Xavier. That's a tough game. Ohio played Illinois. They really competed. You also had Bowling Green go to Michigan. They were in that game until the very end. So I always think that's very impressive. But really the story, and it's kind of took Twitter by a storm, was Jason Preston at Ohio. He's a guy who put up massive numbers last season, and then even bigger numbers this season in the game against Illinois. He had 31 points. 6 assists, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, and a steal. Shot 3-4 from the 3. He's an awesome player, and I know the story that caused him to go viral was he averaged 2 points a game his senior year of high school. Went to prep school because he played in one AAU tournament, and someone told him you should go to prep school. He was on the C team at prep school. He bounced up and down, got a triple-double in one of his last games of prep school. He posted highlights to it on Twitter, got a Longwood offer and an Ohio offer, and now he's one of the best point guards, not just in mid-major basketball, but in the country as a junior for Jeff Bowles in this Ohio program. So one of the incredible stories, and shout out to him for finally getting showcased on the national stage on Friday.
Yeah, I think that's what we love. It's one of those stories that, like you said, went viral this weekend. One of those stories that made you feel like, man, we're really glad college basketball is back, right? This young man is going to have a chance to play at the highest level. He has the size, he has the ability, he has the talent. He's proven that. May not be as dynamic as a guy like Ja Morant, who obviously was a top pick and top rookie in the league, but definitely a guy who at a smaller school can have a chance to make the transition to the next level and be a really very impactful player because of his skill set. And he's very good in pick and roll, which the NBA is a large amount of that's played in the game. So definitely shout out to him and love those stories, right? That's what college basketball is all about, kind of that underdog. No one really knew, under the radar type of kid that kind of made himself, self-made himself into a player and never gave up on it. So shout out to them in Ohio for that great story. Going back to the Horizon just a little bit, Northern Kentucky, who would have been in the tournament did get a great win against Ball State. I'd be remiss not to at least mention them. And then not very many games, but Oakland took Michigan to an overtime game. They had a chance. Oakland had probably about as tough a schedule as anybody all weekend. They played 4 games, basically played every single day from the start of the season, and played against some really stiff competition. And then their last game they played against Michigan took them to overtime. Definitely had their chances, but not quite on the outcome side that they wanted, but credit to them for competing the way they did. So we'll shift to Missouri Valley, one of your favorite conferences right there in your backyard. We'll talk a little Missouri Valley hoops.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think a missed opportunity for the league this weekend. Northern Iowa go 0-3 at their tournament, and again, that's a really good tournament. And none of those losses to Utah State, St. Mary's, or Western Kentucky are at all questionable. Those are top 100 teams that are tough to beat. But when you're trying to build in that large resume, it's really tough to lose those 3 games. They need those 3 games and then get them. I was impressed by some of their young guys. Bowen Bourne, true freshman point guard, who's going to really shoot the ball for them and play off of AJ Green well, as well as Noah Carter, who played a lot of basketball this weekend because they're one of their best wings. Trey Burhow was in the COVID protocol. He hit, I think, 8 threes in their opener against Western Kentucky. Noah Carter did. He was awesome. So, but 0-3 start not good. Loyola Chicago missed an opportunity to go play Cincinnati because they had a COVID shutdown. Bradley had a very close game that went down to the wire against Xavier. Just couldn't make the shot to win it on Thanksgiving. Very, very difficult break. I think they missed a free throw that would have potentially tied and then given them one more free throw to win the game. So that's a tough break. Those were all good opportunities for the league, so you'll get wins. Drake did get a big one. They went on the road. They beat Kansas State on Wednesday. That was an impressive win. I love their point guard, Roman Penn. He's a guy who I watched at Siena for a year, and he was such a tough kid, fought them through in a tough rebuilding year, and then transferred after a coaching change. He's a kid that I'll always enjoy watching, and has turned into one of the best point guards in the Valley. So shout out to Roman Penn, shout out to Drake for a big start to the weekend with a win over Kansas State, and then win over South Dakota. It's a good program as well.
Yeah, Drake probably the team to talk about in the league with the big win over, like you talked about. And yeah, the Missouri Valley had some opportunities. I'm sure they hope to get back. Again, there's no defining moment in the season. We know that it's going to be a long season. A lot of leagues are going to have their opportunities. We talked about at-large opportunities, and Todd Golden talked about it with their win against Virginia. It puts you in the conversation when you can get those wins. But I think this year is so unpredictable, hard to really say when you're going to be able to maximize on those wins or not, but you just know you want to keep playing and keep everybody healthy so you can keep having those opportunities to progress as the year goes on. Going to Ohio Valley, our second to last team, conference within the region. Who stood out to you here? The leader as far as wins, Belmont 3-0. Who stood out and who looked good in this league in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, Murray State, I think, put up like 180 points yesterday against Greenville, which is the D3 school, 173. So that's always a good start. Obviously, Greenville at the highest level of competition, I think they play a really weird style where they're, kind of cherry picking, and that opens yourself up to a lot of buckets against you. But they got some points hung on them. I thought that, Belmont's 3-0 start was solid. It was what they needed. They were in a tournament with Howard and George Mason. And got a good win over an A10 program in George Mason. Yep. Got some buckets from Luke Smith, who's a guy I've been watching, the D3 transfer that they need to hit some shots for them. On their big man, Nick Mazinski is really, really good. So that's a really good start to the season for them. Austin Peay goes 2-1 in their tournament against a bunch of mid majors. They lost to Abilene Christian, who we'll hear from later. Very good. Very, very, very good Austin Peay team that I'm not telling any stock in. And then Jacksonville State went on the road and won at South Alabama. That was a good mid-major game yesterday that I was, that I enjoyed watching. So shout out to Ray Harper and Jacksonville State. They've got some size now with Amanzi Ngamezi from Georgia and Brandon Huffman from North Carolina helping them up front, and some new guys in the backcourt as well with Darian Adams and Jalen Finch and Damari King.
Yeah, good league. We'll look forward to watching and kind of seeing how that league progresses. I think it'll be competitive at the top. Going to the A10 as our last team. We snuck them in the Midwest just because there's so many teams in the Northeast. Let's talk about the A10.
Yeah, let's do it. Great weekend for the league. You know, he's mentioned Missouri Valley missing opportunities to go get quality wins in the non-conference. Well, the A-10 took those opportunities with the win over Kentucky and the win over LSU. Richmond is just so experienced, right? That just popped against Kentucky. They're playing 22-year-old guys against 18 and 19-year-olds. That always matters. And Jacob Gilliard is as fun to watch as a point guard as there is in the country. I thought Rhode Island was really competitive. You know, they go and take on a great 4 games at Mohegan Sun in 5 days and lose the first 2, but they flush it and win 2 good ones against South Florida and USF. Fats Russell, still Fats Russell. And, you know, I thought they got some good play from Antoine Walker from the Georgetown transfer who was in and out of the rotation last year. VCU gets 2 wins in Sioux Falls after really having to travel around the country to go find games. They were supposed to play in Knoxville and had that get canceled and got on the last-minute flight to Sioux Falls and got 2 wins over a Memphis team, and that's really good. And a Utah State team that's always competitive. Was very, very impressed with how they played. And you know, St. Joe's really even fought a couple for 40 minutes against both Auburn and Kansas, which is an impressive feat given the the level of talent you're facing against, and a year 2 of a new coach and Billy Lang. So I think moving in the right direction. I think at St. Joe's, St. Louis didn't get a chance to watch fully that LSU game, but that's a major win, and their offense is running smoother. I tweeted this stat yesterday, but they hit 10 threes in each of their first 2 games. They only had 3 games all of last season where they hit 10 threes. The shooting was such a big problem for them last season. So Gibson Jimerson, the big wing shooter, hit 7 threes in their first 2 games. That's a great sign. Javante Perkins, their talented scoring guard, he's really coming on. He had 8 threes in their first 2. So if those dudes keep that up, this is going to be a St. Louis team that we're talking about all season long.
Yeah, St. Louis, definitely a team. Dayton didn't play, but St. Louis and Richmond look like 2 of the teams that really came out of the weekend and look like powerful teams within the A-10. What a high-level league. This league may not get as much credit as it deserves for being one of the best mid-major leagues in the country. It's deep, a lot of talented players, and can really beat anybody on any given night. VCU look good as well. They have a competitive squad, young, that's going to continue to build as the season goes on. And then one game that really stood out, shout out to Army. I know it's not a fun thing to be able to celebrate GW getting beat in this league, but you got to give Army credit for
Navy. Playing. Yeah, Navy beat them.
Oh, I'm sorry, Navy. Yes, sorry.
No,
you got to give them credit for pulling off that victory, because that wasn't a game that people expected them to lose. Let's move to the Southeast region. Out of the Midwest, Southeast, let's go straight to the Atlantic Sun.
Yes, indeed. I think Liberty, the main story here, was very, very impressed with Liberty and the way that they played. They played 4 high major games in 5 days. They had to travel in the middle. They went from Florida to Kansas City. And look, are Mississippi State and South Carolina world beaters this year? No, but those are good teams with talent. And they won both of those games by double digits. They were in it all the way against TCU and Purdue, 2 very well-coached teams. And they lost 4 of their top 5 scorers from last year. So Liberty deserves a ton of credit. Their point guard, Chris Parker, is a D2 transfer, looked really good. Texas kid, a freshman, Micaiah B, looked really, really good for them.
Chris Parker went to my high school. His dad used to be so Plano East. Shout out to Plano East Senior High School. Chris Parker, I know his dad. Played high school ball with his brother. His dad used to coach with the Mavericks. Really good basketball mind, Charlie Parker. Chris Parker played at Henderson State, actually recruited by Amara Morgan from South Alabama, and Richie McKay does as good of a job of just figuring out guys that can fit his system. I mean, to lose all those guys that they lost from a 30-win team last year, which is a rare feat to be able to win 30 games, to be able to go all the way to a point where they start the year, everyone's trying to figure out there's no scrimmages, there's no exhibition, and they go straight to playing the big boys out of the gate and are as competitive. Win 2 of those games, like you said, by double figures, and then to be as competitive as they were. And the big fella you were about to talk about from our neck of the woods too, back in Dallas. I didn't mean to jump in there. I just get a little excited when you start talking Texas, man. That's my fault. But yeah, big fella. Shout out to Coach TJ from Texas Impact, who we played for. Really, really talented kid. We recruited him as well. Love the big fella, but I'll let you continue to talk. Let me shut up.
No, you're good. I mean, Embiid was impressive. He's a guy who just had a really versatile offensive game for a freshman, and for a freshman guy who's 6'8" and 6'7", 6'8" in that league. He's going to be a stud there. So, I was just very impressed with how poised they were playing, dealing with adversity on the road for the first time with a bunch of young guys. They were very impressive. Kennesaw State gets off to a 2-0 start after a tough season last year. They were playing non-D1, so we'll see if it sticks, but it's a nice start for them. Then Lipscomb played 2 competitive games. They beat Lamar by 3, and then Tulane they lose by 2 that ball game. Again, remember the name Hassan Asadullah. He had 13 points, 9 rebounds and 7 assists, and that lost to Tulane. He's a stat sheet stuffer up in the front court.
Yeah, so let's move to next league in that region. Let's go Big South. Who stood out to you? Who looked good in the Big South?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just pulling up the scoreboard here. Unfortunately, Winthrop. I mean, we joked about it last week, but that Winthrop UNCG game didn't happen. They're hopeful that they're going to get it rescheduled shortly. But Winthrop still has 2 more games in Louisville against Little Rock and Duquesne. They should be a good test. No one actually won a game in the Big South, so a tough start to the league for the league this season. UNC Asheville lost a couple of close ones against UNC Wilmington and Western Carolina. USC Upstate lost to a non-Division I program on Southern Wesleyan, and they got blown out by Furman. Not a great start for the league, right? I mean, Radford goes 0-3 to start the year against 3 regional teams in Virginia Tech, Norfolk State, and James Madison. They figured that they were going to have some bumps, but especially with the young group, they were replacing a lot. But they had a freshman guard that was worth highlighting, and Famir Ali, who averaged, I think, 12 or 13 points a game, playing the point guard spot as a true freshman. That was impressive. So, going to be a rebuilding year, I think, for the league as a whole. Winthrop's got to come in and play, and that team's going to be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Not a great start to the year. Just no wins just yet, but we know they're coming. Let's go to the MEAC. Let's talk a little MEAC hoops. Talk a little HBCU. What did you see out of the MEAC that stood out to you from this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, first off, unfortunate that McCurmaker's getting shut down early on. He's got a groin injury. Hopefully he gets back soon and can help Howard. They struggled this weekend. I think they'll get better as the season goes on. They're just playing so many young guys. They need that waiver for Nogel Eastern. Hopefully they can get that done. Yep. But Norfolk State, Rob Jones does a consistently great job. Yep. One of the most underrated coaches in mid-major basketball. Yep. Beats James Madison and Radford, 2 consistently good programs in that region. I think it says a lot about where they're at. Particularly with a bunch of new guys, and got a lot from Devontae Carter, who's just veteran guard for them. They brought in a bunch of different faces, and they're still competing. So they were the story. Also, Coppin State, to play Duke as close as they did, had a bunch of new players in there and made some big shots. So losing by 10 at Cameron for a MEAC program is very, very impressive. And DeJuan Clayton had a big game there. I know a guy you coached had a big game there as well. Let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Rob Jones first, but we'll go Coppin State. Juan Dixon obviously won a national championship at Maryland, familiar with the ACC, goes in the Cameron Indoor, and those guys competed at a high level. I watched a good majority of the game on replay. Really impressive to see those guys compete because you never expect that. I mean, sometimes those games are as lopsided as any when an ACC team plays a MEAC team. So, but yeah, shout out to my former player and family member, Mr. Anthony Tark. He had an incredible game with 22 points. I think he had 5 steals, handful of rebounds, handful of assists. He worked on a couple of things that I've seen him in the gym working on. So glad to see him put into use. Awesome to see those comeback stories when a guy, he was a 2-time all-conference player when he was at NJIT, goes to UTEP. Doesn't quite go as he expected it to, not necessarily because of talent. Sometimes those transfers don't work out the way you want them to, but he really, really played well against Duke and showed his ability. And then Rob Jones, man, what a great job Norfolk State continues to do. I mean, a 10-point win against James Madison, a game that they're not expected to win with anyone except themselves. Probably expected them to win that, and then to beat Radford in a kind of a grind 57-54 game as well. So shout out to them and MEAC Hoops. Let's go to the Southern Conference next. Still talking Southeast region. Let's go Southern Conference.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Furman is a great program. They start 2-0. Not the highest level competition, but they're dangerous. Certainly don't sleep on guys like Clay Mounts and Noah Gurley. Very excited about them. Mercer goes on the road, gets a big time win against Georgia Tech.
Big.
That's a program under Greg Gary that I think is going to really get going. They have a couple of transfers who came in and really helped them, and Felipe Haas and Neftali Alvarez. Very impressed with what they're doing. Western Carolina goes 2-1 to start it. Another guy who's doing a great job, Mark Prosser. He's done a terrific job. Their big guy, Xavier Cork, who's come in, and he's a breakout candidate coming off of he's back up last year behind Carlos Dotson. I think he's going to have an awesome year as the roll man in the pick and roll with Mason Faulkner. So excited about Western Carolina. UNCG gets off to a solid start. They've got a couple other tests coming up. And so this is going to be a fun league top to bottom. Very deep, very talented. Has become one of the best mid-major leagues in the country.
Yeah, excited to see the competitive basketball played in that league. We'll kind of shift next to the last league in the Southeast region. Again, just kind of figuring out how to fit teams in each region, but we'll go with the Conference USA. Talk about Western Kentucky was probably the talk of the town. They did not go 3-0, but they played extremely well and lost to a really good West Virginia team. Charles Bassey looks really good as he comes back. Let's talk a little bit about Conference USA hoops and what else you saw and what else you liked.
I mentioned Western Kentucky. I was so impressed with Bassey to be as mobile as he looked, coming off of a horrible knee injury. For him to move as well as he did was very impressive for me. Not only that, but I thought, they got a lot from Davion McKnight, their freshman point guard. He came in, spelled Kenny Cooper really well. This is an NCAA tournament caliber team for me, without a doubt. UAB looked good in two relatively easy games to open it up. They have a ton of talent in the backcourt. They should be very, very good. North Texas, we mentioned losing to Arkansas, but it's a good team. They will be tough to crack. Rice with a 2-0 start, Louisiana Tech. I think Eric Conkle does a really good job there. They beat UT Arlington on Friday. That's a tough game to play, given how good UT Arlington looked against Oklahoma State. So was impressed by that win without a doubt. But this is another league that should be a lot of fun to track.
Yeah, always a lot of fun. Really deep league. Louisiana Tech 2-0. Florida International snuck in 2-0. Rice Owls off to the great start with 2-0. UAB and Andy Kennedy 2-0. Again, a deep conference. Look forward to following that conference. I know North Texas got off to a little bit of a slow start. One of the favorites in the league, conference champ defending, got off to a little bit of a slow start in their first game, but then came back with a win. And then UTSA took a slide that what probably wasn't expected. Somewhat of a local rival, and UTRGV got a win against them that was probably a little unexpected, but definitely know that UTSA has the firepower to do some great things this year as well. We'll switch to the Southwest region, go straight to American. We know who we want to talk about there, which is Houston. Memphis also had some games that were worth noting. Let's talk a little bit about the American Conference. It looks like Houston is clear-cut the favorite right now.
Yeah, they looked awesome. We both watched that game, like we said. I thought Marcus Sasser has made a jump. Without a doubt, he's improved his game. Tremont Mark, the freshman, looked awesome in the backcourt. Was getting to the line all day long, all weekend long. We'll talk about the Texas Tech game, but they also beat a very, very good Boise State team and controlled that game for 40 minutes. That's very, very impressive. This might be a top 10 team. I'm very close to putting this team in the top 10 of my ranking nationally. They are missing, a guy in the front court who can be a scoring threat. Saw Texas Tech go really small and then just switch and have smaller guys on their 5 men like Bryson Gresham and Reggie Chaney. But they did get some good play out of Justin Gorham, who wasn't much for them last season. Towson transfer helped them out. And the biggest X factor is that Caleb Mills has been banged up. He was a guy I picked to win the conference player of the year. He has barely played in their opening weekend. And for them to still be, control for 40 minutes, Texas Tech, control for 40 minutes against Boise is very, very impressive.
Yeah, Texas Tech, a top 15 team. You think they were rated 14, and Houston going in with 17. So for them to, control that entire game, be up as much as 20, and not have a person who is essentially their preseason player of the year pick. And Caleb Mills kind of battling that injury just shows they have another level they can go to. They're playing at a high level right now. They're defending at a high level. They always rebound at a high level, but to have as many playmakers and shot makers, like you said, Tremont Mark, shout out to Sasser, who, again, was in a recruiting battle, know him well. What a great young man, comes from great pedigree. Always thought his game just transferred, just mature. But look forward to seeing what Houston does. I think they're as good as any team there is in the country right now because of the way they defend, because of the way Coach Sampson, again, another guy who doesn't get enough credit for how good of a coach he is. I think he's still kind of not talked about as much as he probably should be, despite he's won Coach of the Year back-to-back years. What a tremendous job, what a tremendous culture that they have, and just look forward to seeing what they do. SMU is a team that hasn't played yet, that's playing here soon. That also is a team picked. Excuse me, they did play once. I'm sorry, they did play once. They got a victory. That's one team that I think everybody's kind of looking out for to see who's going to be at the top to compete with Houston. We know Memphis has some talent. They had a good win, but also took a loss. Tulsa's also played. They haven't won yet. Wichita State has not played just yet. Cincinnati hasn't played yet. Temple and UCF. East Carolina did get a win, and Tulane got 2 wins, but definitely going to look to see who's going to be in that next tier to be able to compete with Houston, because it looks like Houston's as good of a team as there is in the country.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. It's going to be tough sledding to beat those guys defensively. I love their intensity.
We'll move to the next league in the Southwest region. We'll go to the Southland Conference, which we do have a guest coming on later today. Abilene Christian, the talk of that league right now. They went 3-0, won their event that they played in. We'll talk about Abilene Christian, but also talk a little bit about the rest of the Southland Conference.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough break for Stephen F. Austin. They flew from Texas to Boston, then hopped on a bus to Mohegan Sun. They got there, they got tested. They had a positive in the travel party who wasn't even a player or coach. So they get sent home. That's really, a heartbreaker. But still was, that's a team that'll be worth watching. Abilene Christian we'll talk about a little bit later. So don't want to spoil it too much, but they're doing their thing. They're forcing a ton of turnovers. They're competing against very good mid-major programs that get a lot of buzz, like East Tennessee State and Austin Peay, and to win those games are very, very, very impressive. Nicholls State starts 2-1. Austin Clunch doing a really nice job. They beat UC Davis and Idaho State out west. They just recruited a high level, and that sets the tone, certainly without a doubt. And looking down the rest of the league, Willis Wilson and Corpus Christi, they get a win against Texas A&M International, not a D1 program, but a good way to get it started with a win. Then Incarnate Word also beat a non-Division I program on Sunday. Those are the only other 2 wins for the league.
Yeah, let's move straight to the SWAC. Just kind of moving. We'll talk more about ACU later when Associate Head Coach Brett Tanner comes on. Move straight to the SWAC conference. We saw some competitive games. We know Texas Southern was in some competitive games. Prairie View got a win. They did have that game against Little Rock that we talked about as a featured game to kind of keep an eye on. They did sneak a win, and Alabama A&M snuck a win in as well. They're 1-0.
Yeah, they certainly are, and I was very, very impressed by first of all Alabama A&M beating a SoCon team in Sanford. That's a nice win. Prairie View, I was hoping we'd see Cam Mack transferring from Nebraska. He's so talented, but they've been able to win a game early and compete with Louisville early, and then hang in with Little Rock, another good program. So Prairie View is still going to be very, very good. Southern played a couple of tough ball games against NC Central and Iowa right in the game. Against NC Central losing in overtime, and then just kind of get overmatched talent-wise by very, very good Iowa team with tons and tons of talent. And then Texas Southern, competitive against 2 high major programs, couldn't get a win yet, but the talent with Michael Weathers and Galen Alexander from high major programs is certainly worth watching.
And then our last team in the Southwest region, or last conference, the Sun Belt Conference. We will have a special guest on later on from their staff at Georgia State with a huge win in a 4-overtime game to start the year in all of this COVID. And guys were in great enough shape to figure out how to win that game against Georgia Tech. Let's talk a little bit about the Sun Belt, which is always a great conference with basketball.
Yeah, I mean that was one of my favorite games of the opening week. Shout out to Georgia State for hanging in for 40. That was tons of fun. They start 2-0. That's a really good start for them. They get Mercer tonight. That'll be a very big game against another good mid-major program in the region. Texas State starts 2-0, one against the non-D1. Then they beat A&M Corpus Christi. UT Arlington was impressive against Oklahoma State, hanging in for 40 minutes. I thought that the JUCO kid they had, Shahada Wells, was awesome at 21 points. Was excited to see him, and he certainly lived up to the billing. Yeah. Coastal gets a win. Underrated because they wound up losing the game by 30 points, but Louisiana put up 82 points on Baylor. That ain't easy to do. Baylor is one of the best defenses in the country. That's a team, I think, with the guards that they have, particularly Myleik Wilson, who's a very dynamic player. I'm excited to see him this season. I think they're in really good shape. And then one more to shout out, Michael Flowers at South Alabama has a really good start to his season, and particularly given I think he lost his father to lung cancer earlier in the week, and then came out and wanted to play and hit a buzzer beater to win it against Florida Atlantic in the opener. So with all the adversity he's been through with the trying to get eligible. Just really fun to see a guy like that have a moment like that to start a season. And South Alabama will be a factor in this conference.
Yeah, another one of those stories you just love to have college basketball back playing again, right? I mean, you talk about a kid that's been through adversity, even in his transfer. I think their Twitter campaign ended up being successful to free Mike Flowers to get him eligible and get his waiver through, and then for him to have just the tragic things happening off the floor, and then to be able to have just that moment to be able to play game again, be in a competitive game against a good Florida Atlantic team, and then find a way to get a game-winning shot to go down. So much credit and shout out to Mike Flowers. The stories you love about college basketball. Appalachian State also 2-0. Georgia Southern, Brian Berg, brand new head coach, got his first 2 wins. So congratulations to him. And Troy started the year 1-0. Scott Cross and those guys now 1-1. So this league's always competitive. Look forward to seeing great things out of that league as well. So we'll do so in about 12 minutes, we have our first guest, but we will get rolling and move to the next league. We have the West region and the Rocky Mountain region we want to knock out, but we will get a quick 30-second break and come right back. Here you are with Coast to Coast, College Hoops with Kevin Sweeney and myself, Brian Burton. We've gotten through most of the conferences. We got the West Coast left, West and the Rocky Mountain region. So we'll go straight to the Rocky Mountain region first. We will talk Mountain West, Summit League, and WAC. So we'll go Summit League first. What did you think about what you saw out of the Summit League from the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, first off, South Dakota State, I think people thought they might get overwhelmed a little bit talent-wise against some better mid-major programs. They certainly did not. They blew out Utah State. They hung in for 40 minutes against West Virginia, who's as difficult to match up as anyone with their size and athleticism. They're going to be really, really good. They're going to be a problem in that league all season long. They're going to win 20 games. They're going to go to the NCAA tournament, in my mind. UMKC gets 2 wins in opening week against non-Division I programs, but I think Billy Donlin's going to do a nice job there without a doubt. Otherwise, Oral Roberts goes 1-1 to start it off. Got blown up by Missouri in the opener. South Dakota, I was impressed by. Just didn't win either game, but I think they're going to be good. Just kind of getting some JUCO guys worked in the backcourt that they need to be good for them. And North Dakota State as well played 3 games, 3 tough games. They played Nevada, Nebraska, Creighton, and hung in with Creighton and hung in with Nevada. Kind of got blown out late against Nebraska, but as a tough 3 games in 5 days to start the year, and they were very competitive.
Yeah, and Denver's the other team that got a win this weekend. I think a 9-1 they may have played and start out the year 1-0. So we'll move to the WAC conference. The top of the WAC, New Mexico State, had a thriller with an NAIA team out there in Arizona. And let's talk about the WAC. We also mentioned UTRGV got a good win against UTSA also played Texas. Who stood out to you in this league?
Yeah, I mean, UTRGV, that's a nice win. That's a good program win. When you're talking about beating an in-state team that probably gets a little more attention and love, without a doubt. New Mexico State, I mean, they're playing in a gym that looked like it had been built in a tent. I mean, they're playing an NAIA team on the road because they don't have a home right now. They're playing at a conference center in Phoenix. So they were kind of working their way through it and played a very good program that I think played 5 games already, and they were ready to go and give them the best shot and hung in there. Grand Canyon with 2 wins to start the year. Not a high level of competition that they played, but good for Bryce Drew to get it off on the right foot. And then Seattle as well, 3-0 start. That's a good start. 2 D1 wins over Portland and Air Force, both from leagues that you consider better than the WAC generally. So a nice start for a team that's rebuilding in Jim Hayford's club and the Red Hawks.
Yeah, competitive start for the league. Red Hawks and GCU leading the way with being undefeated, 2 and 3 wins. And yeah, the New Mexico State situation really, really challenging. Obviously, basketball is a priority there. We know those guys are always going to do a tremendous job. Coach Jans and Corey Barker, James Miller, Dave Anwar, what a great staff they have. But man, what a tough situation. They're living in a resort in Arizona, not on campus. They're basically staying there through the basketball season and just kind of figuring out how to create their own little bubble and figure out how they can play games as best they can. And not an easy situation. Good to play that game and get it out of the way and find a way to just come out on top. Even if you win ugly, that's what the good teams do. So credit to them for finding a way to win that game. And we always look forward to big things from New Mexico State. The Mountain West, we'll shift to the Mountain West, the last team in this, Rocky Mountain region. Not the West region, the Rocky Mountain region. We'll go to Mountain West as the last team here.
Yeah, I think San Diego State deserves all the love here. I was a little skeptical that they would be able to continue the way that they played last season. They were losing so many key guys. They came out and looked awesome. Defensively, have not missed a beat. Kashad Johnson, the sophomore, is a guy to watch without a doubt. Good to see Nathan Mensah back on the court, healthy, looking fresh. Matt Mitchell can score. Tel Gomez can shoot it. They've got a bunch of pieces, and they look really good. Boise State, I'm certainly not selling stock. I thought, playing against a Houston team that is as good as Houston is, they just didn't hit shots, and you need to hit outside shots when you play defense like that. So that's without a doubt a challenge. The big loss, obviously, for UNLV, they're very excited. They have all this talent. They're headed to Maui this week. They're playing in tickets. They think they got caught looking ahead and got picked off by a very good Montana State team led by Danny Sprinkle, and a lot of talent there. So certainly, that's not a loss you want to take if you're UNLV, but doesn't mean they can't figure it out later. And then finally, Nevada gets a win over Nebraska. That's a big high major win for that program. Finished really strong late. They were down big and fought back in closing minutes. And Grant Sherfield, their transfer point guard from Wichita State, made a huge 3 to win it late.
Yeah, another Texas high school kid. Shout out to Grant. Big time play and great shot and way to start the year. I mean, anytime you can get a Big Ten win like that, an early season win to start your year, you never know what that momentum can do and where it can take you. So credit to Nevada for closing that game out. San Diego State was really impressive against UCLA. I mean, really played at a high level. Kind of picked up where they left off, even though their team is much different than last year. They picked up where they left off and played at a high level. Definitely look forward to seeing what they continue to do and how they continue to grow as a team. Fresno State also started out with a win, and Wyoming and their new staff starting out with a win in the Mountain West. So we'll shift to the West and go straight to the Big West Conference and tell us what you thought. What stood out to you from the Big West Conference from the weekend?
Yeah, one was just literally a waiver that I saw come through right since. And Long Beach State didn't play this week, but they got a waiver for Isaiah Washington, who will be a big impact guy for them, point guard. I'm excited for them. League only got 4 wins in the opening week. One of them was a non-D1 by Cal Poly. One of them, I believe, was a non-D1 by Cal State Northridge. They beat a non-D1 program. UC Davis beat Idaho State. That's a good win for them. And then Santa Barbara, also a non-D1. So only one Division I win for the league. I'm not selling UC Irvine stock. I think they're going to be very good. They just played 2 very good teams to open the year in Pepperdine and San Diego State. And I think it's going to take them a little bit of time to get their offense going. They lost so much in the backcourt. They need some young guys like DJ Davis and Dawson Baker to to step up, and they had some bright moments in the opening weekend. It's just going to take them some time.
Yeah, take them some time, and you be interested to see how that waiver plays out that you talked about. This league will definitely be competitive to see who comes out on top. Usually always kind of a wild card team that can go dancing in the tournament, even though someone may win the regular season as one bid league. You always want to stay tuned to see who can get hot, who can start playing well at the right time. Irvine is the picked favorite. They did have a really difficult schedule coming out, but we know they will get themselves going back again as the year goes on. Let's talk Gonzaga, obviously maybe the best team in the country. Most people have them rated number one. They were elite. They played against Kansas. We'll talk WCC basketball. Stan Johnson got his first win. Congratulations, Stan, at Loyola Marymount. Got his first win on a buzzer beater as well. Pacific also still playing well with Damon Stoudemire. So much to talk about in this league. San Francisco, obviously one of the biggest conversations outside of Gonzaga, beating Virginia. So let's talk about the WCC and the competitive league it is.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about San Francisco a bunch earlier, so I don't want to say too much. I thought that their guards were terrific, and shout out to Todd Golden, the job he did getting them ready for that game. They played 4 tough games in 5 days, so big shout out to them. St. Mary's, they're going to struggle to score, I think, at times, but they got some really good play from Alex Dukas, their sophomore wing. He had 25 points in their win against South Dakota State. He's going to be important for them. Also think Jabe Mullins, a shooter who had 15 against South Dakota State in the final game they played there. That was impressive. Gonzaga's in the tier of its own. They're the best team in the country. Drew Timme looked awesome, another Texas kid. Jalen Suggs was awesome. He looks even better than anticipated. And then BYU, light schedule to start it. They've got some bigger tests that's coming up with they have USC this week. They have Utah State at the end of the week. They have Boise State coming up. They have Utah coming up. They have San Diego State coming up. So they'll get tested in the coming weeks, but they don't appear to have missed much of a beat. Alex Barcelo is shooting 8 for 10 from 3 this season. That's pretty darn good. He can really score. He can really shoot it. Brandon Averett has played well at point guard. And once they get Matt Harms integrated, I think he's dealing with an ankle. They're going to be very, very dangerous. So fun league all around, without a doubt.
Yes, fun league, and it'll be competitive. Gonzaga, man, they look really good. I don't know that they have any games on the schedule on the slate that look like they will really test them before they get into conference play just yet. Last conference to cover from coast to coast. We talked about Montana State getting the win against UNLV. Let's talk about the Big Sky Conference as our last one.
Yeah, Montana State. That's a big time win for that program. Again, when you're in year 2, getting something that gives you some belief, I think, is massive. And that was a heck of a start. One of the teams that got a win. Weber State played a non-Division I team. They got a win. Their team I'll be tracking with a lot of young guys, and a bunch of transfers into that program. Sac State gets a non-D1 win, and then Eastern Washington, they played with 7 guys against Washington State and went to the wire. That's a very good team. Shante Lagan's a really good coach. Once they get healthy, I think they were dealing with a COVID problem, but they were able to play because of the Pac-12's testing protocol. They're going to be tough to beat with guys like Jacob Groves and Kim Aiken. They're going to be a very, very talented team.
Yeah, we have some special guests coming on. Looking forward to those. Following what you said on just kind of that early, anytime you take over a program, as Danny Sprinkle has, to get that signature win early on, to be able to get more belief, more buy-in, and just more momentum. Congratulations to them beating UNLV. Definitely a significant win for them as they continue to build. And again, this league it looks to be like it's going to be open to see who's going to compete at the top. I know Montana, one of the teams picked at the top. They played against USC. Had a tough matchup there, but look forward to seeing what they continue to do as the year goes on and as teams get to play and get more practice time and more reps, and hopefully can stay healthy and test positive so everyone can be ready to play at their highest level. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with one of the special victories, one of the special stories of opening weekend. We have Richmond Spiders associate head coach Marcus Jenkins. Look forward to having him on to talk about their big win against Kentucky after we come back. I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career. All right, well, we're back. We have our special guest here in the studio. Straight to it. Coach, welcome, man.
Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. We're not doing as well as you are right now. We didn't have a big win like you did. Let's just get straight to it. Let's talk about the Kentucky game, the win, what it meant to your guys, what it meant to the program. Just looking forward to hearing all about it.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're all in the office again this morning, but we're all still floating. I can tell you that much. Everybody around here is feeling good. It was a great flight home. One of the easiest, one of the happiest flights home we've had in a while. And more than anything, like everybody, we were wondering if we were going to play and wondering what it was going to look like with limited fans and how COVID might affect it. We had our first game of the tournament canceled due to COVID, and so it just got everybody wondering about if we were actually going to play. And we had talked about this Kentucky game for so long with our guys, and they had it, of course, circled on their calendars. Not that we were overlooking anyone, but you just so rarely get a chance to play these teams that we had been talking about it a lot. So for our tests to be negative, and it feels like we're getting tested daily now, but it's one of those things with our team. The team that we've got back after the season we had last year, and with it being cut short, we're at the point where it's whatever it takes to play. And so the test came back negative, thankfully, and we were able to get 2 games in Lexington, and played a good Morehead State team that we certainly didn't overlook. They've got some talented guys, and we were lucky enough to get past them and play Kentucky. And our guys were just great. We didn't shoot the ball incredibly well. I would say we've got a really good shooting team. Shots didn't fall yesterday, but our defense really hung in there. And, it's just, I think, the sign of an older, veteran-led team. We've got these guys that have played in so many games and have so much experience, and, they've lost, they've won, they've been through battles. They have, experienced the ups and downs of a season, and then to get through and experience what we did last year, we now know how to win. And these guys know what it takes to knock off big teams. And I think that showed up yesterday.
Yeah, Coach, you alluded to it a little bit with the defensive effort, but to keep a Kentucky team that is as talented as they are under 65 points, especially with the size that they have, and that seemed like the biggest problem was dealing with Sarr on the inside. But can you just walk through a little bit the defensive effort that you guys had and how you guys were able to limit this Kentucky team as well as you did?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we talked about their length and athleticism, a ton. And with it being, we were scheduled to play 3 games in 5 days. And so we didn't have a ton of time to prepare for them. But in the time we did have, we talked a ton about their length, their athleticism, how quick they like to get out and run. And then, of course, the players they have that can do all those things. Their talent and ability is off the charts. So I thought we had a good game plan going in. And again, hat tip to our older guys. We have the ability to put in a game plan quickly. And these guys, not only do they understand it, but they can execute it. And those are 2, I think, critical things. And we were able to do that. And I think we were on a couple of their sets, and that allowed us to be in the right position to, take away, what that would normally create for them and what it would create due to their length. If they get a step on you, or if they get you even on their hip, like it's going to be a bucket. It's going to be a bucket. And so we were able to, be on a couple of their things. And like I said, our guys not only paid attention to the scout, but they were able to execute the scout, which was incredible and huge for us.
One of the other things that I noticed was, as an experienced team, it seemed like you guys didn't panic when shots weren't going down. Gilliard and Francis combined to shoot, I think, 3 for 18 from 3. Yeah. Just speak about the experience and the mentality in the huddle when you're getting the open looks you want and they're not going down on the road in a game that feels so pressure packed. Had that March vibe.
Yeah, sure. Well, if you were to come in and watch one of our workouts or one of our practices and you saw Jacob and Blake go through their shooting workout, you wouldn't believe that they shot the way they did yesterday. And we had. I didn't think any of their shots were bad shots, just because they have the ability to make them, and they can shoot and make shots at such a high clip, and they've done it for a couple years now, and they do it every day in practice. So there wasn't one time that we do a huddle and we were talking about a bad shot. So that was the first thing. And with them being older, and before the coaches got in those huddles, they were talking amongst themselves about, these shots are going to fall, like keep shooting. Grant Golden is another senior, and he's such a big, has such a big voice and is such a big leader for us. He was the main one in there telling those guys to keep shooting, and shots were going to fall. And, we're lucky in that we've got other guys that can, step up and make shots. But again, if you told me that Blake and Jacob were going to go, 3 for whatever, and we were still going to be in the game at Kentucky, I wouldn't be too sure about that. But like we had mentioned, our defense really stepped up, and then our other guys played incredibly well to back up those guys, Jacob and Blake. And then when we needed a couple shots, they fell in the second half, and it's a testament to those guys. Their confidence. Like you're not going to find a more confident backcourt in the country, I don't think.
Coach, we'll let you go after this last one. Congrats again on this big win. We know that this is not the end for you guys, and it's a great celebration, a great momentum builder. Where do you hope and plan to see to build from here with your team? How do you get the mindset? You obviously have an older team, so they understand. They've been there. They're hungry to. You talked about this a little bit on the phone. You feel like you got cut short like a lot of teams last season. You had the momentum and were playing some of your best ball. Felt like you had an NCAA tournament team last year. How do you see the rest of this year playing out? What do you hope to gain from this great win that you guys can build on?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that's the main thing is we've got our whole team back from last year, and it is a team that felt as if they were shortchanged a little bit. And so, whether that's a chip on the shoulder or if that's a motivating factor, I'm not really too sure. We don't talk about it a ton. It kind of goes without saying. And so I'm just hopeful that this is, a little bit of a spark for us. We certainly went into the game, again, not overlooking Morehead State, and we weren't overconfident, but this group believed that they could beat Kentucky. And again, we didn't have anything written up on the dry erase board, and we're not big on mottos or slogans, and that's from the top down. That's from Coach Mooney. But what we do have is just an incredible culture here, and that's one that's been created, over 16 years of Coach Mooney head coach here, and we've now got the players that are older to really show it. And so I'm just so happy that you're able to put on that stage and we're able to kind of show the country, the type of team that we've got and the type of team that we had last year. And we did truly believe that we would have been in the tournament last year. And so as far as goals go, again, along with the mottos, we don't talk about them too much. But, you ask any one of our guys, they want to win the Atlantic 10, and they want to go into the Atlantic 10 tournament and play well and have a good showing, and then make the NCAA tournament. And, these guys deserve to go. That's why, again, I'm so happy for our players that they got to show who they are and what they can do on such a national stage like they did yesterday. Because like everybody, they've been through a lot, but they deserve what's coming to them today. With some of the AP and national rankings come out, I think we're in the top 25 now. And again, just so happy for our guys. They deserve this, and I know that they're enjoying it right now. But we've got a tough road ahead. We didn't schedule softly by any means. So we go on the road right away to Charleston, and we've got West Virginia coming up, and we've got Furman at home and Northern Iowa at home. So we don't have too much time to relax. Like I said, the flight home was one of the best I've been on last night. But it's also that on to the next one mentality.
Well, so much congrats, so much respect for what you guys are doing there. Congratulations also on the contract extension. We know how hard those things are to get. So just so happy for you guys as a program to be able to get on this stage, and you deserve all the accolade and all the attention you guys are getting, those top 25 votes. And just look forward to seeing what you guys can continue to build on. We're definitely big supporters here of you guys, and wish you nothing but the best the rest of the way, and stay safe, and continue to kind of surprise the rest of the people who don't understand how good you guys are. Continue to turn heads, Coach.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed the talk. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yes, thanks so much, Coach, and good luck the rest of the way.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Well, awesome time there with Coach Jenkins from Richmond. Again, kind of one of those teams that felt like they got cut short last year. Could have made a run, had a great chance to go dancing, and now they're proving with everyone back, proving how good of a team they are, getting some top 25 votes, beating Kentucky, and we know this is not the last. We'll be hearing the buzz of this team. So thanks so much to Coach Jenkins for coming on. We got another special guest coming on from Abilene Christian University, the associate head coach, Brett Tanner, who I happen to know fairly well. I had the pleasure of working with him when I was at my time at Abilene Christian. So we'll have a quick commercial, and then we'll go straight to Coach Tanner.
Welcome to All Access Coaches Corner, where our mission is to serve coaches, share their stories, and spotlight their programs with our host, Brian Burton. A longtime successful college basketball coach, former championship collegiate point guard, husband, and father, Brian is now the Vice President of Rising Coaches Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance for men's basketball. An empowerment coach and founder of B3 Legacy Sports and the All Access Network. Sports broadcaster and host for All Access Coaches Corner and All Access Sports Media. Coach Burton is now using his success, experiences, and connections to be a point guard in the sports industry at all levels, with a mission to help others to further their success. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
Coach Tanner, what's going on? Straight from Abilene, Texas. How you doing, man?
Good, man. What's up, Brian? How you guys doing?
Doing good. We got Kevin here. We'll let him get off the first question. Otherwise, I'll talk all day because I know you so well. So I'll let Kevin get it started. But congratulations on a great start. Definitely some games that guys didn't necessarily expect you on the outside to be able to win. But you guys kept it consistent in what's really hard to do in a quick turnaround starting the year. So I'll let Kevin get off the first question. Look forward to having you on today, Coach.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly a great start. 3-0 start, maybe not against brand name programs, but against some really good mid majors. ETSU won 30, I think, last year. Austin Peay is a team that I was excited to see. I was just so impressed, watching you guys all weekend, particularly on the defensive end. Turnovers have been so important to your defense for several years, but forced 22 in the opener, 18 in the second game, 23 in the third. You just talk about taking the ball away and how important it was in those 3 wins to go win a tournament.
Yeah, man, I think that's the one thing that we pride our program on is defensively. We want to fly around. We want to create turnovers. We want to score off of our defense. I think that, that's something that Coach Golding really wants to push. He talks about all the time, and he gives his assistant coaches a big voice in pushing that as well. So I think that you hit on the head. I don't think we can beat those teams if we can't turn them over. We played 3 very good teams this past weekend. East Tennessee was a tough first matchup with a brand new head coach and 10 new players. and not being able to prepare for them. We just had to do kind of what we do really well, and that's what we kept talking to the players about. Is, man, we can't worry about what East Tennessee does. It's just got to be what we do, and we got to be really good at it. And then Austin Peay, Austin Peay is a top 10 mid-major program, in my opinion, right now, currently. And so we had to do the same thing with them. And then on the quick turnaround with Omaha, they do a great job, man. We've been trying to get a game together for the last few years, both of us, because never get days to work out. So we finally got to play each other. But we being able, again, it just comes out to turnovers, man. That's what we hang our hat on, and hopefully we can continue to do that. I think with 10 players back for us, this pandemic has been crazy for everybody, with programs being shut down and not being able to practice and different things. Having that many guys back in our program, I think, has benefited us, and that definitely benefited us this past weekend. Where we were able to, just with so many guys back, we haven't had to miss too much. We haven't had to put too much in or worry about guys missing.
Yo, Brian, you got one, or should I take another here?
You take the next one. I'll take the last two. We'll save the best for last on this one.
All righty. I guess my next question, kind of based off of that, was, when you have all those experienced guys, how did you approach the off season? How did you approach coming into a season knowing you had all these experienced guys, knowing you had guys who had some guys who'd been to an NCAA tournament, some guys who had competed and won 20 games? How beneficial was it going through such a disjointed process all offseason to know you had guys who've been through the ropes before and knew how to play Division I college basketball?
Yeah, I think it gave us a sense of ease, I guess, with the so many returners, to know that with all the stuff that was going on we didn't see our players for like 27 weeks or something like that. It was crazy, and so we did feel a little comfort in the fact that we had so many guys back, but. We started talking about a month ago that this still is a new team, even with 10 new guys. We lost some really good seniors last year that were pretty important to our program. And so we did have to do a lot of things, the things that Coach Golding is so good at here, man. And that's building relationships, man. That's how the buzzword is culture, but that's how the culture here has been built, we're intentional about building real relationships with these players. And, we had 5 new guys on this roster that we weren't really able to do that with necessarily, through the summer and through the fall, because we can't do the things we normally do. We can't get together at each other's house. We can't go to lunch. We can't do those things. But it was really beneficial because he's been so intentional in doing that since he's been the head coach here, that we had 10 guys back that we already had those relationships with, those real relationships with, where there was a trust built, there was a bond built. And I think that those guys were able to help us get these new guys, on board to start trusting us when we started to practice. So as uncomfortable as it was for us, because we couldn't go do those things that we're so used to doing to build those relationships, it was helpful for sure that we had those 10 guys back, that those relationships had kind of already been built, and again, I think that's what won us 3 games this past weekend. As much as we could talk about our defense or our bigs hitting threes or doing whatever, I think it was those real relationships that Coach has built over the last 2-3 years with the guys that were back on this roster from last year.
You talk about Coach Golding, again, close friend of mine. I was blessed to work on the staff with you guys. We coached for 3 years with you in our first year, Division I, the hardest year of all, to lay the foundation. And talk about, again, I was there for the inside. I've watched it from afar. I've celebrated it and so excited for what you guys have done. Number one, I think you deserve more credit, and I know you get some credit, but people talk a lot about Mark Adams and what he does at Texas Tech as kind of this defensive specialist. You brought this hard hat mentality and this detailed defensive game plan and presence and identity to Abilene Christian. So talk a little bit about that, and just talk about how you guys have built and kind of done this unthinkable thing to take a program that's transitioned from Division II to Division I. Wasn't a successful Division II, let's just be honest, in a really hard Lone Star Conference, and not only made it into a winner in the Southland Conference, but kind of did the unthinkable and went to the NCAA tournament and just your second year eligible. So talk about a little bit of that process, and then how important that defensive identity that you brought plays into that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Brian. And obviously, we had a couple of really good years together, man. But I think that obviously Coach gives me a big voice in the defense, but I can only do as much as he wants me to do, and we're only going to be as good as he wants us to be defensively, because ultimately it's his voice, And so as appreciative as I am of him, and he gives me a lot of credit, too much credit probably, but I'm just grateful that that he is the kind of person he is that allows his assistant coaches to truly have a hand in the program. And I think his voice and what he finds important and the things that he pushes is why we've been able to be successful. But you talk about the transition when we were together, man. That was it's probably the hardest thing I've ever been through, man, in my professional career. I thought I knew what I was going to get myself into when I took this job. I think you thought you knew what you were going to get yourself into, and Joe thought he knew what he was getting into, but none of us knew what we were getting into, man. It was way harder than any of us expected. We had great kids, man, that played their tails off, but it's not set up for you to succeed right away. There's a reason. Everybody asked me while we were in the transition, why is it 4 years? Why aren't you able to play right away? After living through that 4 years, there is a good reason why it's a 4-year transition, man. You're not set up financially. You're not set up staff-wise. And so I think we played 10 guarantee games in that first year, made over $500,000. It was crazy, man. And that was just, so we could pay our staff, and we could maybe make our locker room look a little better, and we weren't even fully funded completely yet. And people don't realize that we had 13 full scholarships, but we didn't have 13 full scholarships. I mean, a lot of that money we earned had to go to funding those scholarships. So it's very difficult, man. And ACU, it wasn't a great Division II program, but it's Division II is a terrible financial model for a place like ACU, where it costs close to $50,000 a year to go to school here. So when you're giving a kid a half a scholarship, even with a Pell Grant and a loan and all that, he's still paying $20 grand. We're down the street at another Lone Star school. Shoot, he could, you give him a half scholarship and a Pell, he's probably still putting money in his pocket and he's not paying for school.
Right.
So going Division I, where we could give full scholarships, I think people underestimate that, man. It's a way better financial model for a place like ACU. And even Incarnate Word, who's in our league, who transitioned with us. So I think that was a big part of it. But we've been fortunate. We went through 3 athletic directors while we were here. Going through the transition, it was a bumpy ride, man. But we had 3 really good ones, and we're blessed to have the one that we have now, who understands the importance of college basketball and knows that what it can do for a university at this level. And as I'm looking at this, you can see behind me, man, that's a rendering for, they're doing renovations in Moody. I'm sitting in a dorm room right now. This is my office for the next 18 months because of the things that they're doing here on campus for men's and women's basketball and volleyball as well. It's going to be a completely new facility with practice gym and weight room and team room and film room, and of course the playing bowl is going to be bigger and better and all that good stuff. But so that's where we're at now. The NCAA tournament, both programs, men and women, both going to the NCAA tournament certainly helps probably get some of that started. But our leadership, for sure, is a big part of that.
Yeah. So my last question is, and so I'm talking to Joe, again, great friend of mine and great friend of ours, and a great basketball coach, but a funny guy. Most people don't always know that. So I hear that you guys have something that you sacrifice for the season. You get your players to do it, your staff to do it. So the first question is, what did you sacrifice? I got to put you on the spot, Coach. And then what are some of the cool things that your team has sacrificed, and what has that done kind of for the culture of your program?
Yeah, man, I think it's something that I really enjoy that we do, man. That we do it at our retreat every year before the season starts. We've done it for the last 3 seasons, and guys will sacrifice anything, man. It's supposed to be something that will benefit you personally, but also the greater good of the team. Obviously, I work at a Christian school, man. So I don't know how many ACU people see this. Last year I sacrificed cold beer, man. I didn't drink cold beer during the entire season. And I held to that. And we're very important. This year, I sacrificed smokeless tobacco, with snuff. So I don't mind putting it out there, man. But so I'm 2 weeks as I'm sitting here talking to you. My knees are bouncing and I'm working my hands, but I'm 2 weeks away from it. But those have helped me personally. But I also think that they do help us team wise, man. I'm supposed to set an example for these young men and how they're supposed to live their lives, and maybe doing something that's not a very good example, but also I think me being healthier, you know what I mean, and doing things is going to help our team moving forward as well. And so that's one example. And some of our guys, I mean, they give up. Like one of our players gives me a cell phone at 11 o'clock on game day. And he's not going to. And he did it. He did it all through when we were in Florida. He's going to do it all year. So from 11 o'clock on, he's not going to look at his cell phone or have his cell phone in his possession. And it's going to keep him off of social media. It's going to keep him from hearing the white noise that comes from family and everybody on game day. And he definitely is going to make us better. And we even had a conversation on the plane ride home that how much better he felt, by giving me his phone, for those 3 games, and that he was just so much more focused on the game without having all those distractions that come with that dang little device, that can do so much damage to you, man, especially on a game day. So that's an example, but I think it's a great thing that we do, man. There's a million things that guys have given up, some things you wouldn't even think about, and some things are really good. And I know it's been really good for me. It's made me a better person the last few years doing it. And so it's something I look forward to every year.
Well, awesome, Coach. We appreciate you coming on. Congrats again on the fabulous start. We know it starts with defense first. That's how you win championships, and great job setting the tone there. I'm not disappointed that I'm not in that locker room or dorm room with you. I loved working with you guys. It's great having you on, Coach. Good luck the rest of the year. Excited to see what you guys do, and you're always family, man. Whatever we can do to support.
Same here, man. I appreciate it, Brian. Thanks, Kevin. You guys take care.
Appreciate it.
That was Brett Tanner, the associate head coach at Abilene Christian, with a great start to the year. And we have our last, but definitely not least, guest coming on. Really excited about our next guest as well. Pulled off a big-time win to start the year in the state. They're also in year 2. We talked about Danny Sprinkle early on and Montana State getting that win and kind of that momentum and what it builds for your program. So now we have year 2 assistant coach from Georgia State, Coach CK. We're going to bring him in the studio. Coach, how you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you? Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, we can hear you, man. We can hear you. Appreciate the mask.
Good.
I know your focus is game day.
We're on the bus just heading back to the hotel from shoot around, so I had to follow the protocols.
Yeah, appreciate you jumping on with us, Coach. That's some dedication right there. Let's talk about. I'll let Kevin go first. I won't take all the. This is my good friend here, so I won't take all the shine. We'll let Kevin go first.
Yeah, I mean, congrats on the win. That was like 2 wins, but particularly the Georgia Tech game. I know how much that game means in the area to win a game like that. But I think the biggest thing I was impressed by in that win was how many poised plays the guards in particular made, Allen, Williams, and Roberts, in late game situations. I think the triple overtime play where so many opportunities, and when you're trailing in a game, guys will force a shot. They'll either force a drive and get an offensive foul, or they'll force a tough jumper. And your guys had the presence of mind to pass the ball, get a really good look, get fouled, and score. And I just felt like seeing that was a great sign for a team to go win big games. Can you just talk about the poise that your guys showed late in that ball game? Certainly on tired legs against a high major opponent.
Yeah, that game was like a dream, to be honest, between the COVID protocol and 4 overtimes. But I just think that we do have really good guards. And it starts with Coach Lanier, the way he really empowers our guys to play with freedom and do what they do. He gives them confidence to take those shots when guys go under ball screens, to let it fly. And, Coach Warren works with our guards and instills confidence in them. So our guards make us go for sure. And we're very fortunate to have the upperclassmen guards, like you said, that, in college basketball, that's what it's about. You got to have good guards. And, we were very fortunate that Georgia Tech agreed to play us in that first game. And we didn't have to travel, and it was a great, experience for us as a team. And we're looking to continue to get better. We know we have a lot of room to grow. And so, yeah, going into this game today, at Mercer, we're excited to get back on the floor.
Yeah, and then off that, your big guy, the transfer from Cincinnati, Alil Sosame, that was a kid who was pretty raw offensively when I saw him for Cincy. He has looked awesome in 2 games at 22 and was really dominant in that game against Georgia Tech. Can you speak to his development and the stuff that he has done to grow during that redshirt year last year and into this season?
Yeah, so he literally just walked by me as you were talking on the bus. But he's a grown man, and we knew that when he sat out last year in practice. He helped us, get better even last year. He's a very mature guy that's about the right things. Comes from humble beginnings and is on a mission here, and so he brings a level of toughness and leadership that we desperately know we needed, and that's why we recruited him, and we're so fortunate to have him. But as good of a player as he is, he's an even better person. So really excited to see what he's got in store for us this year.
And looking ahead, I mean, tonight is a big game against a Mercer team that also beat Georgia Tech. Give us the 1 minute scout. What should we be watching tonight, and what should be a really good matchup between 2 really good teams?
Yeah, so this game tonight will be great because we actually play them again in a couple of weeks. We were closing in on the end of a 4-year series that the previous staff started, and we decided to knock that out this year. So we're going to see them twice here in the next 2 weeks. Very well coached. We have a lot of respect for how they play. Offensively, they run a lot of stuff, and we're going to have to be ready to guard. They're very skilled offensively. They shoot the ball, made 12 threes against Georgia Tech, so obviously that's an emphasis for us. But even defensively, they're just tough, physical. He's in year 2 his program, and for Mercer, are looking forward to playing him twice here in the next couple of weeks.
Coach, talk about how important, again, just kind of, I know your game day, so you're focused on what's next, but you obviously had a big in-state win. You're in year 2. You're building momentum. You're trying to build respect for your program and the job that Coach Lanier is doing leading it. Talk about what that win kind of meant and how it helps just people outside of the program, people within the state that you're going to recruit, people national. That was a national win and one of the most exciting wins of opening weekend. So you guys are one of the talks of the start of college season. What does that mean to the program, and how does that help you guys as you continue to build your momentum?
Yeah, you play to win the game. And obviously we were playing and we practiced, all summer and all fall to be able to win every time we step on the floor. But, Coach Lanier has stressed to our team and our program that we're trying to get better. Every time we step on the floor, we have an opportunity to do that. And so for us, yeah, it was a great win to start off the season. Didn't have to travel far. It was great. But honestly, we're focused on the room for improvement that we have. And, we were able to watch the film of the last 2 games and, pick 5 to 10 things that we need to improve on. So, for such a weird and funky offseason because of COVID, now we're in the mindset of we have film to watch. We have young kids that are getting introduced to college basketball. And so now it's really a great opportunity for our team to improve. And that's really what we're focused on.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Coach. And let's just talk about Coach Lanier for a second, because we talk a lot about great coaches and great mid-major coaches. Coach Lanier, first and foremost, what a first-class human being he is. What a tremendous leader. I mean, you don't find many human beings like him that have the presence and the understanding and the ability to connect and the humility to be able to lead and impact others, period. We'll talk about a little bit of credit that he had in that Tennessee run that they had with Rick Barnes. I mean, he was just instrumental to that and to that program being one of the best programs in the country. Just talk a little bit about Coach, and that not everybody gets to know him or see him as closely as you do. You've worked for a lot of great coaches. You guys have a tremendous staff there. Talk a little bit about Coach and just what makes him the great coach and leader that he is.
Man, we could do another hour on that, but yeah, he's the best. Like I was saying about Ellie, great player, better person. Same thing with Coach Lanier. His humility as a leader, for all of us assistant coaches, aspiring head coaches, he's such a great example for us. as a staff. He sets the tone for everything that we do. And like you said, we have a great staff here. I love our staff from top to bottom, coaches, support staff, trainers, strength coach. We have an unbelievable group of people that he's assembled. And so, as you know from your experience, winning is hard, and this whole thing is hard, and you got to be surrounded with great people because, it takes a lot, and everybody's got to do their jobs. And that's one of the best things about Coach Lanier. He lets you do your job. He wants you to have a voice. He wants you to coach, and he wants you to bring your skill set to the table to make Georgia State basketball the best program that we can be. So if you can't tell, I'm having a blast. I'm trying to talk quiet because I am on the bus, but I couldn't be more happy about being here at Georgia State.
No, absolutely. We'll get 2 more questions in before you go, if you don't mind. One of them is just, what's something that you would want people to know about the Georgia State program that maybe aren't as familiar? What's some things or something that you would like people to know kind of about the Georgia State program?
Yeah, I'll say that we're about more than just basketball here, and that's the refreshing thing as a coach. You and I, we've known each other a long time. You're about the same things I am. My faith is important to me, and so here at Georgia State, we're about academics, we're about life, we're about using basketball to help these guys improve their lives. And so we go by 3 things here: humility, responsibility, and respect. Those are the 3 core values. And we live it, and it starts with Coach Lanier, and it trickles down to our staff. And I think our guys know what he expects from them because he set the standard. And so back to, he's the head coach, but he's the leader, and we as a staff, are following our leader to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, then I will end you with this one, Coach. We always like to try to bring a little bit of humor or a little bit of laughter to the show. Is there anything you can tell us, maybe even after the win or something that's happened during this kind of COVID unpredictable season that maybe can shed a little bit of humor inside of the Georgia State program? Maybe Coach got to dancing in the locker room after the win, or maybe you broke your pants because you did a split because you were trying to break a leg. Tell us something that may be a little bit funny or something that may be a little bit humorous about the Georgia State program.
Yeah, you kind of cut out there. I'm going to try to answer the question I think you asked. It was about the Georgia Tech game. After that game, it was funny. We were all talking, trying to figure out how many overtimes it really was. It seemed like 8. So that was the running joke. How many overtimes did we just play? What day was it? We're looking at our clock, and it's 2:30, 3 o'clock by the time we got home from a game that was in our city. So it was just one of those weird deals. But I'm not sure if that was the right question or not.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. I would imagine after all those overtimes, you didn't know what day it was or how many overtimes you played. So, we'll tell Coach Lanier that we said hello. Congratulations. We know you guys are not done yet with what you're going to do in the Sun Belt Conference in this season. Tell the staff we said hello. Stay safe. Appreciate you wearing your mask. And good luck today. You play one of my former teammates and colleagues in Bobby Coomer, one of the
Bobby Coomer.
Yeah, one of the great ones out there. So good luck. I know it's going to be a competitive game. Good luck the rest of the year, Kevin. I don't know if you had anything last you wanted to say, but thanks so much for being on, CK.
No, thanks, Brian. Thanks, Kevin. Y'all take care.
Appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. See
you. We had 3 for 3 on the guests. What did you think, my man Kev?
No, that was awesome. I think that's what everything we want to this show to be, to not only get our takes throughout the country, but also to hear from guys who are doing it and getting big time wins. And it was great to hear from Coach Jenkins and what they were able to do and get a little insight into the huddle when they were trying to beat Kentucky, and obviously Abilene doing a great job and go 3-0 and their experience. Then obviously Georgia State love an overtime win. That was a lot of fun. So looking forward to watching that game tonight. I'll have it locked in on one of the screens without a doubt.
No doubt. We'll be really fast, and we'll wrap up in our last 10 minutes after a quick break. Well, we're back. We're going to close the show in the final 10 minutes. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll talk basically about what to look forward to in this next week. A lot of great basketball has already been played. It feels like we can't get enough, and it starts again tonight with more games and goes all the way until we'll see you guys next Monday again, where you can tune in to us on allaccess_SM on Twitter and Instagram, and also All Access Network on the YouTube and Facebook. And then you can find College Basketball Central. Kevin will tell you a little bit about that before he talks about kind of what we're going to lead into to look forward to for next week.
Yeah, my website, cbbcentral.com. My podcast, the CBB Central Podcast, that one on Apple and Spotify. So we're excited about that. But this week's going to be fun. It's already started. We've got a game in action right now with Texas and Davidson at halftime. One in Asheville for the Maui Invitational. That's going to be fun all week. You got Indiana and Providence coming up. You got North Carolina. You get Stanford, Alabama, which is the team I'm very excited to watch. So, the talent level is really high in that event. We're excited to watch that one. And then you have, coming up on Tuesday night, you have the Michigan State Duke game and the Kansas-Kentucky game as part of the Champions Classic, not at a single site, but at two different gyms, and should be very, very entertaining. You've got Tennessee. Gonzaga got canceled, but it sounds like Gonzaga is going to play West Virginia on Wednesday, which should be a heck of a game. Certainly excited to watch that one. You have Baylor and Gonzaga, which could be kind of a national title preview late in the week on Saturday. Illinois Baylor as well. So I think one of the cool things is teams have been willing to test themselves. We certainly have some big time tests to watch out for. Mid-major games, you got San Francisco versus Nevada, two very good teams out west going to take on each other. Murray State, Middle Tennessee, that's a good game in that region. That should be really good. We mentioned Georgia State, Mercer. That should be a very, very good game. Winthrop, Little Rock is on Wednesday. That should be exciting. And you also have some teams that are going to get started with conference games very early as well, towards the end of this week, early next week. I know the Mountain West has some conference games scheduled for the end of this week that may or may not happen. The NEC gets started middle of next week. So a lot of really, really exciting stuff coming forward with non-conference games, with conference games, with tournaments. Cannot wait.
Yeah, definitely is. It feels like it's Christmas almost every week with the fact that so many great matchups. Hopefully more teams that have not been able to play can get kind of through their COVID protocol. Definitely will be pulling for those teams, and hopefully we don't have too many more teams miss out. We know we've had some reschedules. You talked about the Mountain West. I know Colorado State was set to play this week, and I don't know that they're going to be able to get going in their conference game. I think it may have already been canceled. And, just looking forward to watching more great college basketball. Looking forward to more great matchups, more compelling stories. And, look forward to just covering it all, man. Kevin, of course, if you need to have any questions during the week about what matchups or what's going on, if you want to just know, you know where to find him on his Twitter page. He's as active as anyone out there, providing great content. You can also find me. I may not have as good of answers as Kevin does, but we definitely look forward to following his Twitter feed. And we thank you so much for joining in. It's been another great show. Our first time to be able to cover some content, go coast to coast, go from every level and really highlight the mid-major level. We had three great guests on today. Thanks to Abilene Christian, Brett Tanner, associate coach. Thanks to Coach Jenkins from Richmond as their associate coach, and also Coach Kreider from Georgia State. So thanks so much again for tuning in. We'll let our man. You got any other closing thoughts, man? What's your who's your breakout team this season? I mean, this week. We got to put you on the spot, put you on the hot seat. Who's gonna come together and put some things together and break out?
Man, that is tough. How about this? Last year, South Alabama took Auburn all the way to the wire, and Isaac Okoro had a tip in at the buzzer to beat South Alabama in a packed house in Mobile. This year, South Alabama gets the job done. They go on the road. They beat Auburn on Friday night. Book it.
Wow, you heard it here first. Breakthrough. I like it. Any other upsets that you can see? I know the team that's winning wouldn't call it an upset, but for the fan, from an upset standpoint, Is there anything else you can see? We also have some really big primetime matchups where we have some of the heavy hitters, some of the top-rated teams playing against each other too. Anything else that sticks out to you in those that you want to touch on before we close the show?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to consolidate all of them into one thought. I will say this. I think BYU facing against USC early this week. I mean, BYU is probably just as good as USC, but USC gets the buzz with Evan Mobley, the five-star recruit. I think BYU wins that game at Mohegan Sun on Tuesday and gets a big win for their program, big win for them moving forward. So shout out to the Cougars who are building it great under Mark Pope.
Yeah, Mark Pope played his former team at Utah Valley. Played them here recently and has gotten off to a great start. They got the win in that game. Coach Pope and BYU will definitely be a team that we didn't talk much about in the WCC coverage this week. We did in the preview show, but Coach Pope's done a tremendous job there already in setting the tone and getting some high-level grad transfers and incoming recruits. I know they had an injury to an important player early on this week, so hopefully things can go well with kind of fighting through that and working through that. But looking forward to some of the primetime matchups, always some great mid-major matchups. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week and you guys tuning in. And thanks so much again. And we'll see you soon. Be safe and make sure you eat all of the leftover Thanksgiving food. Don't leave any of it behind, okay? That's good food. Kevin, you got anything you want to end with?
Nah, you hit it, man. Let's wrap it up.
Sounds good.